bodies through sexual torture was the message that God sent, a message of defeat to those who demand their rights, and the message was disseminated around the country. That discourse of fear, the discourse of terror that comes from the state. Facing that, we've been carrying on in our modest battle. We're just 11 women, and we're trying to overcome all the machinery of terror that the state has implemented across the country. And we're trying with our to be able to build solidarity again and to build something with other women against impunity and against this terrifying message from the state. Well,
it's a political movement and it's a personal therapy at the same time. I'm sure to be able to get together and to keep moving forward after an experience like that. So we have the politics of fear, the use of brutality openly. I'm sure that they thought that all of you were going to go home and never speak of it and bear that private pain forever and never protest again. That seems to be the purpose of what we're talking about. And yet you did exactly the opposite. And for that, women all over the world are grateful. This is a serious problem that doesn't happen just in Mexico. And I want to ask you about how you decided to use the international system to press your case, and what happened at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights when you took your case there.
First of all, to reach the point where we could talk about our experience for us was it was fundamental to be able to take care of ourselves. It was like emotional first aid, you could call it. Being together, we were isolated, we were alone, and we didn't know each other. So it was a little just recognizing the pain that we had shared during those transfers. And I think that the first impulse that helped us carry on this struggle was rage. What I was thinking was that I couldn't believe that in such a context, so close to Mexico City, in such a politicized space as Atenco, that such a thing could happen, like what happened to me. It seemed completely unbelievable to me. So I started thinking, why did they let me leave after this experience? So it was... In the end, there was a lot of work to be done. I did other political work, I didn't work against repression, and in this moment I started to do this. This protest became obligatory for me, to put it in that way, because of my experience. The rest of the women, it was through assemblies. We decided there that we had to fight back. We couldn't allow what had happened to us to go unnoticed, right? So what we did was to get our testimonies out there and to start this movement. The thing is, in Mexico, not much happened in terms of access to justice. What did happen was that we got a lot of support from many organizations, many collectives, many people who supported us, who listened to us, and who accompanied us in this fight. But in the national context, we couldn't get any access to justice. The state has ignored us, and even worse, they have re-victimized us. It criminalized us after what we experienced.
And you have to exhaust all the national level mechanisms of justice in order to take a case to the Inter-American Commission, the Inter-American Court on Human Rights, right? So what, did you feel like you got a fair hearing there? You were there just this last November, right?
Yes. Last November we had a public audience before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and it was a space. I would say that it was a healing space, because our voices were listened at the same time as the governments, under the same conditions, and our testimonies were respected and listened to. Probably the state hasn't really listened to us, but the judges listened to what we had to say. There were 5 of us who we gave our testimonies, and it was an important space. There was a lot of international attention and international media. And then after that, national media in Mexico covered it. And so it was like, after 11 years of fighting, they finally had to listen to us. And if it hadn't happened in that context, I'm sure it wouldn't have happened at all.
I wish you much success in your court case, which could be precedent-setting for women all over the world, and also in the construction of this very important movement against sexual torture. Thank you so much for joining us here on Interviews from Mexico. We'll be back next week. Join us.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on TeleSUR.
We are approaching a new era. Technology trends and the massive deployment of new networks. It is just the beginning of what lies ahead in this new decade. Atomun. Travelers of knowledge, the future is today.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on TeleSUR.
El mundo se mueve constantemente y todos los días se generan nuevos sucesos. Se mueve la geopolítica mundial. Nos preguntamos qué hay detrás de cada acontecimiento, cuáles son las consecuencias y cómo nos afectan. Ante estas preguntas, buscaremos poner el punto en la I.
Panama's government reached agreements with indigenous communities and some organizations, while other sectors remain mobilized and demand an extension of the dialogue table. In the United States, at least 4 people were killed in a shooting at a shopping mall in the city of Greenwood in the state of Indiana. In Sudan, artisanal gold mining leaves a trace of environmental destruction. We have more on the topic in this news brief. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Panama, the government reached agreements with indigenous communities and some organizations to unblock the roads and lower the fuel prices, while other sectors remain mobilized and demand an extension of the dialogue table. The executive, together with representatives of the Ngabe-Bugle region and farmers, agreed on a price of $3.30 per gallon of fuel after signing an agreement for a 3-month renewable period. Meanwhile, the National Alliance for the Rights of the Peoples, ANADEPO, and the national government managed to sign an agreement in the city of Santiago, the province of Veraguas. However, the bulk of the protests, led by the other groups, announced that they will maintain the blockades while demanding greater representation in the negotiations. Meanwhile, protests and demonstrations continue this Sunday in different parts of the country. In the city of Panama, neighbors spontaneously came out to demonstrate their discontent with the government led by Laurentino Cortizo. With posts and banks and the pens, also banners and Panamanian flags, hundreds of demonstrators expressed their discontent in the center of the nation's capital. Despite a partial agreement reached with some organizations, the Pan American Highway, which links the country of 4.4 million people with the rest of Central America, remains jammed on Sunday with large trucks. The high cost of living and the widespread corruption are the main points of discontent among the mobilized population.
In 68 years of life, I am tired of seeing governments that make their promises, that go up, steal, go down. The next one goes up, they steal, and here we lack everything: medicine, education, food, and our inequality has no name. The rise in the price of medicines, the basic food basket, which is very high, our economic situation, we have problems with large payrolls, deafness, several factors for the perfect storm that is happening in Panama. People are fed up and have taken to the streets to demonstrate for things to change.
In Argentina, the provincial police of Jujuy, a jurisdiction governed by the same person who holds Milagro Sala as a political prisoner, infiltrated the social organizations without a court order. The espionage gathered a dossier of almost 80 files with photos. On March 31st, the Public Prosecutor's Office ordered an investigation into the social leaders who were organizing a march in opposition to the governor Gerardo Morales. The prosecutor ordered to infiltrate all the organizations that will mobilize and individualize their leaders, which resulted in 16 raids on houses, dining rooms, picnic areas, and headquarters of social movements. The defenders of the people targeted by the raids were only able to see the file last Friday, finding personal files of almost 80 leaders with all kinds of personal data, bank accounts, real estate, and vehicle registration information. And the Cuban creativity stands up to the blockade. Union of Railway Workshops, linked to the national industry and other management models, manufacture ferro buses or train buses for the transport of goods and passengers. The equipment is designed to transport the passengers and cargo to and from remote rural areas. Through the work of the Cuban innovators, Diana, Uton, and other out-of-service buses are transformed into railway vehicles. The program, currently under development, is achieving a high social impact according to the authorities in charge and offers a quality service to the inhabitants of those communities further away from the municipal capitals. At these places, the railway is the main means of transport. Human rights organizations in Haiti denounced that clashes between armed gangs have brought the death toll to 300 victims. Pierre Esperance, the Deputy Executive Director of the National Human Rights Network, emphasized that during this weekend, clashes between gangs for territorial control of the Site Soleil, the neighborhood located in the capital, intensified, leaving at least 160 people injured, most of them civilians. The officials stressed that the figures represent an increase of 337% regarding deaths and 216 regarding injured people compared to last Wednesday's report, when the organization reported 89 killed and 74 injured. Casualties also rose after the United Nations unanimously adopted a resolution last Friday to ban the transfer of arms to criminal groups in Haiti. In Colombia, the death of one person is reported, while 13 others were injured in a motorbike bomb attack in the department of Cauca. The attack, attributed to principal to the FARC dissidents, took place on Sunday at about 11:30 p.m. in the municipality of El Bordo, head of the municipality of Patía, Cauca. The detonation affected at least 6 houses and several commercial establishments close to the town center of this municipality in the department of Cauca. According to preliminary information, the victim was a civilian, while among the wounded there were 3 police officers. In the meantime, this Monday, an extraordinary Security Council will be held to analyze this and other acts of violence. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
In Conviasa, we know the importance of moving your business. That's why we create the service Conviasa Cargo. Today, we move your cargo to more than 16 international destinations. With qualified personnel and the best rates in the market, you can ship up to 90 tons of weight. Contact us through our website, mail, or the phone number that appears on screen. Moving your business always on time. Conviasa, in charge of your cargo.
El mundo se mueve constantemente y todos los días se generan nuevos sucesos. Se mueve la geopolítica mundial. Nos preguntamos qué hay detrás de cada acontecimiento, cuáles son las consecuencias y cómo nos afectan. Ante estas preguntas, buscaremos poner el punto en la I.
Follow the most important global events through a comprehensive perspective. With a team of journalists in 25 locations around the world to convey our people's reality. From the South. Weekdays. Only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, at least 4 people were killed in a shooting at a shopping mall in the city of Greenwood in the state of Indiana. James Eisen, the chief of the police department, said that a man armed with a rifle entered the food court of the establishment and opened fire. He also said that there are 4 confirmed dead and 2 people with injuries who were taken to a hospital. He also confirmed that the assailant is among the dead, shot by an armed civilian who witnessed the shooting. And the U.S. President Joe Biden could face impeachment if Democrats were to lose the midterm elections. President Biden risks facing impeachment if Democrats were to lose control of Congress in November's midterm elections. Impeachment motions could pass by a majority vote in the House. However, the president could only be subjected to a political trial if the motions get 2/3 of the Senate. House Republicans have already expressed their willingness to initiate new inquiries into a number of issues, including the case of Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Such inquiries could set the stage for the impeachment of President Biden. And the German authorities announced that without new imports from Russia, the country's gas reserves are insufficient for the upcoming winter. This Sunday, during an interview, the director of the German Regulatory Office for the Electricity, Gas, Telecommunications, Post and Railroad Markets, Klaus Müller, warned that gas deposits in the European nation are only at 65% of their capacity, a level that is not enough to get through the winter. Mueller explained that the low levels are due to the temporary suspension of the operation of the Russian gas pipeline Nord Stream 1 for maintenance work. Michael Hutter, director of the German Economic Institute, warned that the European Union's refusal to allow Russian gas imports could have negative consequences for European companies and the consumers. Now we move on to other topics. The European Union warned that it will not lift the sanctions on Russia following the special operation in Ukraine if Moscow and Kiev sign a peace treaty on Russian terms. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that he knew from the beginning that they will have to sustain the sanctions against Russia for a long time, and stressed that there is no other way to an agreement with Ukraine than the one the Ukrainians can accept. Scholz emphasized that Europe will continue to support Kiev in economic, humanitarian, financial and arms shipments, and guaranteed that NATO will not become one of the sides in the war. Now we address other topics. Hurricane Estelle hit southern and southwestern Mexico, causing intense rains that could generate landslides and floods in states near Sinaloa. This National Meteorological Service reported the storm was located approximately 500 kilometers southwest of Acapulco, Guerrero, and 600 kilometers south of southeast of Manzanillo, Colima. The Meteorological Service asked maritime navigation to take extreme precautions due to the conditions of strong winds and the high waves. In addition, it forecasted winds with gusts of up to 70 to 80 kilometers per hour and waves up to 4 meters high on the coast of Colima, Guerrero, and Michoacán. France sent more waterbombing planes and hundreds more firefighters to combat spreading wildfires that were being fed by hot winds from a heat wave hitting much of Europe. 2 huge blazes have burned their way through the pine forests for 6 days, just south of the city of Bordeaux in southwestern France. The fires have forced the evacuation of some 14,000 people, including many who were on holiday in the area. The devastating forest fires are triggered by a summer heat wave in Europe. Parts of the continent are bracing for new temperature records early next week. The fire season has hit after an unusually dry hot spring that left the soil dry out and which authorities attribute to climate change. A new crack appeared on the Marmolada Glacier in northern Italy 2 weeks after a deadly avalanche of ice and debris killed at least 11 people when a large piece of the glacier broke loose. The 200-meter-long and 25-meter-deep crack was spotted by the Alpine Rescue Service from a helicopter after a local guide reported a loud roar. A large piece of the glacier came off on July 3rd, sparking an avalanche that sent torrents of ice, rock and debris down the mountainside onto unsuspecting hikers below. Experts had said the warming temperatures likely contributed to the cleaving, since the glacier has lost mass and volume for years and has been melting more quickly than usual this summer amid a heat wave. Between 2004 and 2015, the glacier lost 30% of its volume and 22% of its area. And the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute on Monday announced a yellow alert for tropical heat and temperatures close to 38 degrees Celsius in the south of the country. The meteorological authorities have activated the National Heat Plan and issued a series of recommendations to avoid physical exertion, which include drinking plenty of water, keeping homes cool, and looking after animals during the tropical wave that will pass through the Netherlands with unusual values. The Institute also urged the people to pay attention to the homeless or overweight people, children playing in yards, and the elderly. A spokesperson for Schiphol Airport in the capital, Amsterdam, said that temperatures on the airport's runway could exceed 50 degrees centigrade, and measures will be taken to alleviate passenger discomfort and safety. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us.
Every year, thousands of people leave their homeland to reach new horizons. A reality of those people who struggle for their freedom. Know the diverse causes of those who live between borders. Thursdays, only on TeleSUR. It is our duty to reverse the damage we cause to the planet. Let's recover our natural ecosystems with actions in defense of the environment. Let's keep fighting for a greener world. Wednesdays, only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. Now we focus our attention to Sudan, where a growing number of traditional miners have traveled to Benat village, hoping to strike it rich. But they leave behind hazardous white powder waste loaded with toxic chemicals, including mercury, used in the gold extraction process. Artisanal gold mining is widespread across much of Sudan, employing more than 2 million people and producing about 80% of the gold extracted nationwide, according to the experts. The North African nation is one of the world's poorest countries, and mining remains a source of fast profits, attracting many. But chemical contamination from artisanal gold extraction poses clear health dangers. The World Health Organization stated that mercury damages the nervous, digestive, and immune systems and can be fatal. It also threatens the development of children in the womb and early in life.
This artisanal mining has a very big impact on the soil, and it's used in many places, especially in agricultural areas, forests, and even in the desert. There is now a lot of destruction, huge physical destruction within the lands. We got very large deep pits and large quantities of mining waste. Unfortunately, it is very hard to deal with all these pits from an environmental point of view. The actual treatment is very difficult. Currently, there is a huge problem facing the residents of these places, and that's the presence of large quantities, thousands of tons of waste or mining residues among residential and agricultural areas.
Sri Lanka's interim president